In Southern California, a park known as Six Flags Magic Mountain exists. I have been there a lot of times, and I have been on nearly everything. Today, I will rank all the rides I have been on, which sadly excludes Wonder Woman, Tatsu, Apocalypse, Crazanity, Lex Luthor Drop, and very, very sadly, the West Coast Racers, along with the kiddie rides. Now, I never did get to do Wonder Woman or the West Coast Racers because they were not there and operating when I was there. And in the case of the other rides, either one, they had way too long of a wait, two, they were down a lot of the time, or three, it was just too frightening for me to get on at the young age that I was there at the parks. And for those rides, that would be Tatsu and Crazanity. In the case of Lex Luthor and Apocalypse, it was almost always down or way, way too long of a wait. So let's begin. Now, I know I said no kiddie rides, but there are a very small handful on this list. This has to include Buccaneer. Buccaneer is a very interesting ride to me because it's one that you'd probably see at a fair, but it's also one that I didn't see a lot growing up. And it's the one where you just simply rock back and forth and you gain momentum and you gain some speed and then you slow down. Simple ride, it's themed as a pirate ship, and it's pretty fun. Now, this kiddie ride is a fair ride that I have never actually done until I went to Six Flags. Now, when I did go on this ride, it was actually the Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth ride, but now it is the Teen Titans Turbo Spin because the Wonder Woman ride is a bigger and better roller coaster from what I've seen, and it took over the prior ride, which was the Green Lantern ride. So Green Lantern became Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman became Teen Titans. And all I have to say is that if you've never experienced a ride like this, the really fun thing about it is how it moves and how gravity moves you in the ride. And it's a really fun thing. It might look kind of cheap and crappy and run down like most Six Flags rides appear to be, and some are. But it was decently maintained when I got on it. And if you've never experienced this type of ride, I do recommend. Now, my memory with the Roaring Rapids ride is as follows. My friends and I sprinted, and I mean it, sprinted up and down a very steep hill, which felt like a mountain, maneuvering past the park guests, and got on this ride. The result was a decent enough water ride. We were trying to cram it in right before we had to get on the bus to take us back from our band field trip. And you know what? It was fun enough. It had a decent water aspect, but if you've done it once, you've done it multiple times. Now, something I do want to say is, yes, I did mention the crowds. This park is very weirdly structured. If you look at a map, it has a very bizarre structure of how spaced out everything is. Unlike Disneyland, and well, I haven't been to Universal, so I can't really speak on it, but I haven't heard about Universal, so I'll say that as well. There you have at the Disney parks, Disney World, Disneyland, California Adventure, Universal parks, you have a much more contained park. You don't feel like you're walking around as much. While you have Six Flags, which feels so terrible because things are spaced out so far away because they have just so much land. And there's a lot of steep inclines and declines, and it's not a very flat and linear park, kind of like how, Disneyland is, and you get to choose your own way. And, you have some nice gift shops and spots to relax. Instead, at Six Flags, you got a lot of different ways to hurt your feet by just walking. You don't got a lot of park benches. You don't have a lot of modes of transportation, and it kind of sucks. Moving on, though, we have Gold Rush. Gold Rush is terrifying for anybody that is tall. Now, this is the kids ride that is the equivalent of Big Thunder Mountain, but with no theming whatsoever. The experience that I had on this ride was I got on it and I noticed that we were going to go under a rail, and I ducked because I judged that my head was too tall. I was too tall for this ride, that I would have hit the railing. In actuality, I don't know if I actually would have hit the railing, but now as I am a 6-foot person with shoes and everything and how propped up I am, I would definitely hit this railing, which is deeply, deeply terrifying. The rest of the ride is totally fine. It's a great family ride, and it feels like Big Thunder, just less theming and less chaos. Now, this might annoy a lot of people, but I'm not a big Full Throttle guy. Sure, you do get Ozzy Osbourne playing, but the ride itself lacks excitement to me. And it's just one big loop, and then you get to go over the loop, which is kind of cool. And it has a really crazy wait time, mostly because you have one ride vehicle with, I believe, 6 or maybe 8 seats that can only operate at one time. That's also why a lot of different Six Flags rides have very long wait times, is you can only send one vehicle out there. Some have way more capacity, others do not. Ninja is one of these smoother rides at the park. You get to hang in a sort of gondola-like contraption, and you get to soar through some of the trees. It's meant for kids and adults that don't really like the big, massive thrills, but it actually delivers on a really nice and solid experience. Now, it is ranked at 12 because it is impressive what the ride accomplishes with the limits of being a family and kiddie ride. And yes, it is long and thought out, but it's only at number 12 because it's not as impressive as some of these other ones, but I can give it props for being a very long ride. I think almost like 4 minutes. Lots of twists and turns that feel very, very smooth. New Revolution might be small and smooth, but I do like that. And I know people are going to get a little bit angry that New Revolution is higher than something like Full Throttle, but I enjoy this. Six Flags is not known for their theming, and when you are getting to go through nature in some very well shaded areas, smell some nice trees, it's nice. It's nice to have that. It feels like theming. And yes, this ride does have some sort of intense points, but those intense points feel so smooth. You get a nice breath of fresh air, and it's great. Entering the top 10, we have Superman, which is going to make people very angry. Superman is very overrated in my opinion. I got on it with the warning from somebody who had been there many times that once you do Superman, once you've done it a lot and you can see the track, you know what you're going to do. I waited like 30 minutes for the ride, and it's worth it to say that you've done it. It's a cool enough ride, but it's only a 45 to 30 second ride. Like, it's not a very long ride. It's a very short ride. You punch the air, you know, you feel like you are the Man of Steel himself. It is cool when the Lex Luthor ride is operating at the same time, because sometimes you can see that operating. Sometimes if you're just a bystander in the park, you can look up and see Lex Luthor and Superman, and it gives the illusion that Superman has now punched Lex. It's kind of cool, but you know, there's not a whole lot here. The best thing that I can say about the ride, it has the most well thought out queue, which says a lot about Six Flags. Although our next ride does have actually a better queue. Now, honestly, when I first saw that Six Flags had made themselves a dark ride, I was shocked, confused, puzzled, and I got on with absolutely no expectations, didn't know that this thing existed, and I got on with my friends because we saw the Hall of Justice and we're like, hey, that's kind of cool. And you know what? This is a pretty cool ride. The set design inside is really great. The queue is the greatest at the park. I only said that the Superman queue gets props because it's one of the few coaster queues that actually works. Most of the coaster queues are very bare bones, but this one, of course, since it's a dark ride, has to be well thought out. Cyborg is an animatronic in the queue, really great, a lot of props. Then you get on the ride, some of the animatronics and practical sets are really, really cool and work very well. And yes, this just might be your next Web Slingers or Midway Mania, but I enjoy this ride a lot. It's very fun. It's cool to do this type of ride with the Justice League and see all of the Justice League get pretty even timing with like good voice actors too. It's great. It's actually a really great ride. Now, Scream is not a ride based on the Scream franchise, although I think Six Flags would greatly benefit from that here. Even though there would be still limited theming, it would give more props to the ride. Look, I used to really like the ride Scream, but there are two things that are going against it. Actually, three. One, it's kind of tucked in the back of the park. Yes, it is near Twisted Colossus, which we will get to later on the list, which I do have much more positive thoughts on, but it is kind of tucked in the back of the park. Two, you do have a very uncomfortable ride seating arrangement. You feel very uncomfortable at times. Sometimes it can feel really smooth, and other times it does not feel smooth. And third last point of this that makes the entire experience really just feel dull and lifeless is, of course, you fly over a parking lot. That's all you do. You can literally see people walk to their cars, drive off. You can see the traffic. You are kind of going at a weird pace at some points in the ride that you can just see people going on their break. Like, it's a bizarre ride. It isn't my favorite. It does have some props. Like, it is thrilling enough. It's interesting enough, but it also lacks in a lot of ways. It's a very hit or miss ride. Now, I love Jetstream. Jetstream might be, and probably is, the jankiest, most unprofessional ride at any theme park, and especially at Magic Mountain, which says a lot there. But this ride has something to offer to me in specific, and maybe to you. And I think it's charming how lifeless and dull and void and how out of place this ride is. It's just so awesome to me, which usually I would not say about a ride. There's something charming about it, maybe because I feel like I'm riding Splash Mountain, because it's basically the same track layout or heavily inspired by, but instead of fun animatronics and Disney magic, you have bare bones empty scenes. And even though that final drop is pretty steep and pretty cool, but lacks the amount of water that gets on you, it's still fun to me. I think that Jetstream is just a fun ride. It's in an interesting place. I believe it's near like a food place, and then you go down a ramp, like a flight of stairs, and then you get on Jetstream. And sure, you might get in a vehicle, or I guess a boat, that is overflowing with water. But hey, you're here for a water ride, and you get a decent enough one, and one that has charm just because of the lack of inspiration, effort, or really anything put into the ride. And somehow that is charming at Six Flags to me. I don't know, it just became one of those rides that I really do like. Now, the Riddler's Revenge might seem like a scary ride to some, and honestly it did seem that way to me until my dad explained how this ride actually works, and honestly it is one of the smoothest rides there, especially for the thrill rides. I think it's really smooth because of the odd way that you are locked into the vehicle. You have a very interesting and comforting lock mechanic that very comfortably harnesses you in your seat. Now, yes, this is a standing coaster. Yes, it does have a lot of like world records, or I don't know if they still hold them, for like twists and turns and all these daunting things. And yes, the track is super big, but honestly, it's not that scary. I feel really liberated on this ride and just very at peace. I think it's because it's the nice amount, like the perfect even amount of wind coming in your face, going through your hair, and just the right amount of thrills. Then honestly, it's not that thrilling. The first time I got on it, I was a little bit concerned, but I was enjoying it right off the bat as we went up the drop and dropped, and I knew that this ride would be fun. Now, what I will say is you do need to get in your seat properly, because I think the second or third time I got on this ride, I didn't push my seat down all the way, which wasn't good. So yeah, there's that. Viper is a daunting ride for many. The ride itself is the most intense ride I have literally ever been on, and there's a few different reasons. One, it's uncomfortable. The entire ride itself is just uncomfortable. The seat that you are placed in is kind of crappy and plasticky, and then your head is locked in this sort of contraption, or maybe not locked, but positioned in this contraption where you have these like massive hard rubber cushiony things. I don't even know if I can call them a cushion. They act as a cushion, and your head just rattles in there like a rattlesnake's tail. So yeah, it feels like a death trap. It sounds like a death trap. When you're in line and you're hearing that car come in and brake and halt, you really do worry, are you going to survive the ride? But at the same time, this is some of the fun and thrill of the ride. I don't know if this ride has always been like this, if Viper's always been this rickety and crappy looking and feeling, but the intense loops really do sell the ride. The 7 loops in a row, or whatever it is, I think it's 7 in a row, those spiraling loops, it really does sell the thrill. But it can be an extremely nauseating ride for some that are not adjusted to thrills, which is sad. Now, I do love Batman as a character, and I do love the Batman ride, and I do have a funny story. One time when I got on the ride, I was not properly locked in and had to hold on to my harness for dear life so that I would not fly out of the ride vehicle. So thank you to the Six Flags staff, the teenagers of Valencia that get paid way under minimum wage, and thank you for poorly checking my seat. But seriously, yes, I was actually very poorly strapped in with my buddy, and we almost flew out of the thing. We had to hold on for dear life, and I believe that is the only time I've screamed on this ride, is knowing that I might die, as I very, very, very closely glide way too close to the pavement. The thing about Batman that makes it a fun ride and a cool ride is you do feel like Batman gliding through Gotham. Now, I never have gotten on this when it's pitch black outside, but I bet you that would be absolutely scary, terrifying, and fun, especially if you've been on it before. It'd be terrifying because you know how close you get to that pavement, which is a big concern of mine. The ride does make you feel like Batman as you do glide, but that also means you get really close to the pavement, like I've been saying 700 times. But I also enjoy the ride. As we enter our top 3, we have to go with X2. Now look, X2 might be the most thrilling ride at the park, and it is deserving of a spot 3. I could see people saying this is their favorite of all time, and it's a really solid ride. The first time I ever got on it, I was scared because I saw it from the parking lot, didn't know how it worked, then I saw it work, and I was concerned. Now, it does not help that when you get here, all the ride attendees tell you that you need to very carefully check if you are buckled in, and they do that actually pretty well, way better than Batman at this ride. And they tell you, okay, great, you're checked in, you're strapped in real well. Cross your arms and hold them very close to your chest as you ride the ride. And that is what I do and everybody else does on the ride to make sure that they do not fly out. Now, the interesting thing about X2, as you can probably see by this footage, is that you do go backwards. First of all, you actually lift off the ground a little bit. Then you go backwards kind of at a fast rate, and then it slows down. Then you're going up that lift hill, and then you start flipping and flying on this ride individually as the cart itself. All the cars themselves are attached to this one. It acts like a roller coaster, but you all individually flip around. And there is real fire on the ride. It's really fun when you get near the fire, and it's really scary sometimes, but it's pretty neat. And I like the ride. It's pretty fun. It's pretty intense, but it's also not painful. It's one of the more comforting seats, which is great actually for this level of intensity. So that's X2. Now, our runner-up today is Goliath, the classic scary coaster. Magic Mountain has always marketed, and honestly Six Flags as a whole has marketed Goliath as one of their most daunting coasters. That and Kingda Ka, which as of the day that I'm recording this, Kingda Ka has sadly fallen. So a moment of silence for Kingda Ka, the formerly tallest coaster in the entire world. Okay, but like I was saying, yes, Kingda Ka was a massive, massive ride out there at Six Flags. It was in one of the parks, but Goliath was another big one and definitely the biggest at Magic Mountain. They could market this as the scariest ride, and honestly, for a long time, I would argue that yes, that is true. For me, I didn't really have a super scary experience. I mean, I was a little bit nervous about that lift hill and that steep drop, but this is a pretty good ride. It's pretty intense, it's pretty fun, it's pretty well maintenance. You know, the maintenance on this thing is pretty good. The only time that I did get a little bit scared on this ride was my second time riding, as I almost blacked out in some very intense turns. And that's kind of the only time I got a little bit scared of this. But other than that, Goliath is a great classic coaster. Now, number one is there's only one spot that this ride can be in, and that is number one. I understand, you might love Goliath, you might love Tatsu, which I haven't even ridden. You might, for some reason, love Apocalypse most, you might love the West Coast Racers, or maybe Wonder Woman. I understand, but I think Twisted Colossus is the only ride worthy of number one. Twisted Colossus is the greatest coaster I've ever been on. It is also the best reskin or redo of a ride. The original Colossus was kind of just an ordinary coaster from what it seems. Yes, it was iconic, it was featured in some films, which is pretty cool, and you get to learn about that in the queue. I don't remember what films it was featured in, but it looked like a typical coaster that you'd find at like Coney Island or a state fair, which isn't bad. Now, Twisted Colossus not only doesn't feel like that, it kind of looks like that classic feel, but it doesn't feel like that at all. It is very intense, very fun. It is a 4-minute ride. It is a dueling coaster, although I think the dueling coaster bit has been kind of changed up a bit for the safety reasons. There's a part where you're like both tracks corkscrew and one would be above the other, and that's like supposed to be a cool dueling bit, but I think for safety concerns they just have you guys see each other as on lift hills, like opposite ends of the track and lift hill, which is cool. This ride is just so thrilling. It is the best. It might be toward the back of the park near Scream, but man, this is the best one. Everybody knows it. Everybody that goes to Six Flags Magic Mountain and knows anything about the park knows that they have to do Twisted Colossus. This one is very, very good for re-rideability. A lot of these rides are, with the exception of a few, but this one in particular is really good with that. Like really, really good and really fun. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed my ride ranking video. With that being said, peace out everybody. Let me know what you guys think about the Six Flags Magic Mountain rides or other Six Flags parks, or even Kingda Ka if you were lucky enough to go on that. I sadly wasn't. And see you guys next time.